Hi guys, what's going on, and welcome back to another episode of Conqueror's Blade. So today we have got the Fortebraccio Pikemen. I think that's the attempted pronunciation we're going to go for. These awesome Italian Renaissance pikemen. They are what a unit. One of the ones that was introduced in Season 3. Obviously, the unit challenges unlocked a little while ago now, probably about a week ago, something like that. But I'm slow, so it's taken me a while to get them both unlocked, get all the doctrines I want, and get them to max level. So we're only just sort of getting on to the review video for them now. But hopefully you'll find it's worth the wait, because they are truly a really enjoyable unit. Interesting, I have just a very quick side note. I actually ended up Googling these first to try and get the pronunciation when I first unlocked them and sort of looked around sort of Fortebraccio, and I couldn't really find a great deal on them, unlike the condottieri, which is kind of like the Italian captains. And then it's only when I've elited them and it's put this little apostrophe to show that they are Fortebraccio's, belongs to him, and then I actually looked and it's Niccolo Fortebraccio, which is an Italian condottieri captain. So it's really kind of interesting. I'll probably put a link to his Wikipedia page because it's kind of interesting to give a little bit of a history to the reason for the naming, and they're actually his personal guard. That's kind of cool, but completely irrelevant to the point of the video. So these units are really nice. I've been playing this game a long time, and this is one of the, at least recently, one of the units I've most enjoyed playing. I've had an absolute blast. Really been enjoying this game the past week, playing these guys, because it's just so nice to have such a black and white unit. And what do I mean by that? I mean that when they brace, basically nothing gets through. A couple of reasons for this. Partly they have extremely long pikes, so they are always going to outreach absolutely everything other than enemy ranged units. So that means Imperial Pike Guard advances, that means halberdiers, halberdier sergeants, that means pike militia. Anything with a long stick will find that its stick is shorter and not as long as these guys, and that means you always get the first hit. On top of that, you'll find they have a really intense piercing damage, which translates into really nice brace damage. And then we see along the actual route, we see brace damage increase, brace weapon armor penetration increased. There's the bracing damage increase, next to 6% bracing damage. We see another bracing damage armor piercing increase, and finally, and probably the most important one on the whole tree, is the double hit. That means for each stab one soldier does, effectively he's hitting two people at once. So he's basically doubling his damage almost, so long as there's two enemies in front of him. And the long shot is that anything that comes into these guys just dies, including Imperial Pike Guard Advance seems to get killed by these guys, particularly now they're max level. Reaper Charge, nope, no luck. They just break on the front of these guys. But it's all about the formation. Once these guys break out of formation, get flanked, get caught in a dispersed formation, out of brace, something like that, they die really quite easily. They become useless. They just become a guy with a large stick who can't do anything. But in formation, in that brace, they are just truly awesome. And yeah, it makes for a really fun unit. So just to hop back over to doctrines, because I kind of went a little bit all out on these guys. I've got a pretty good selection. I've got a rare piercing damage doctrine. I don't even know where this came from. I just found it and thought, well, I'll stick that on. Obviously, piercing AP, this is just to obviously bump up the fact they only do piercing damage, so you might as well stick those two on. Then a little bit of piercing defense, because they have no shield and they suffer really badly from range damage, so they really kind of need that. But then onto the most important one, rare polearm doctrine, increases damage while bracing by 100. Quite a rare doctrine to get, generally speaking. Really critical on a unit like this. Makes such a big difference, really bumps up that bracing damage, and it just means it kills everything that much quicker, particularly when you add that onto the double strike and the extra bracing damage from the veterancy line. Really nice. And then a breakthrough doctrine to increase damage dealt to units by 95. I'm a little unsure how that actually translates in bracing in a unit like this. I kind of find it hard to quantify, but still, I think it was kind of worth sticking on. You may end up asking, why haven't I put on the unit challenge doctrine? So if we go to the final one, as with all the units in the unit challenges, they all get their own specific doctrine. And in this case, in the Fortebraccios, you get this increased armor penetration versus cavalry by 150. I just wasn't really very impressed. I very nearly put it on, mostly because it was purple and sort of a little bit of an OCD wanted me to put it on. But what does it really do? So plus 150 armor penetration. If it was just the plus 150 AP, I would definitely stick it on. But versus cavalry only, these guys really aren't very much of an anti-cav unit. You do a little, but Not a lot. Combine that with the fact that their armor penetration is already 2,200. I mean, do you really need more? In the reality, no. And it's just not worth it. There are better doctrines to be putting on. So for me, I just didn't bother with that one and I just left it. Still got it, but yeah, no real option for me to put it on. It's not really worth going down the bottom veterancy line, I didn't think. A little bit of defensive increases, but with no shield, you're still going to get slaughtered by ranged units. So it's the top one is definitely the one to be going for. So I think that's really all I've got to say on them before we actually hop into some battles. Obviously, at the moment, because it's a Season 3 unit, kit costs are half price. So it's only 2,000 to resupply rather than the usual 4,000. It's going to be fairly expensive at 4,000, well, 4,180. So a bit steep for a heroic era unit. So these are going to be quite expensive to resupply normally, but at least they're a little bit cheaper for now. But yeah, really nice unit. Let's hop into battles and kind of see how we've actually been getting on with them. So we've loaded in on Desert Fortress. Basically, the siege towers have just arrived and I've got up the wall and that's about it. And I'm immediately having a bit of a hard time using these guys in an offensive capacity, particularly through this narrow little passageway with the camera as well. Makes it hard to get them to advance. And, you know, we're getting a few kills here and there, but not too much, and we're struggling a little bit. But I found the solution, the real key to these guys, is just to nudge. You know, I know these guys are max level. I know I've got the best doctrines on them. They're a pretty good unit, and they're probably better than enemy Fortebraccios. But just by nudging, trying to get the angle on that corner, that's what I'm trying to achieve. If I just run round and try and set up, I know I'll get slaughtered by those enemies. Our friendly glaive does a really brave thing, goes around, slams in, and that gives me the chance to move up a little bit more. I should have perhaps been a smidge more aggressive there and tried to get a bit more around. Because I'm not really worried about those spear sergeants on the left. If they come round the corner, they'll die. As does anything that really touches, you know. As soon as they touch the Fortebraccios, they die. So that's why I'm trying to get myself angled round without trying to get killed. And you see something like those pike militia walks across, the pike militia dies. But I'm trying to kill those enemy Fortebraccios, and that's why I'm trying to nudge myself around, or trying to get the angle where I can actually deal with them. Because obviously with this two-sided alley, it's pretty hard to deal with. Particularly unless you've got a lot of ranged heroes or something like that. But the unit's doing pretty well, and we managed to clear out one side, which makes things a lot easier, because now I've only got one side to deal with. Some enemy units try and attack again, just get absolutely butchered. I wasn't even paying attention, and we got 20 kills. And that's what this unit is awfully like, because the damage is so high. I was then kind of looking at how I'm going to get around here. The enemy short-sword did an amazing job, and I felt he'd done enough job of disturbing the formation. I throw myself in, try and do that to get the nudge, and it works. I'm able to get myself set up, and it just eviscerates the enemy Fortebraccio unit. And that's kind of the big sort of wind-eye strategy that these guys have. You know, if you get the first hits, you get the first stabs, then it kills everything, because the brace hits is like 1,000, 2,000, something like that. And when every unit double hits and there's 32 pikes sticking into you, you can imagine that damage is so quick, so quickly. So they can be used in an offensive capacity around difficult corners and things like that. And they've definitely done that in other maps as well. It does work quite well. You just have to really nudge them and try and get that angle so you can clip into the corner of the enemy unit with your pikes. So then, sort of onto one of the slight drawbacks of these guys is their speed. They are painfully slow. There's like good opportunities to be getting killed and helping pushing the A point here, and they've not even made it yet. So I was kind of a little bit annoyed about that. But I thought, well, since we've got the opportunity, we're not going to get trebbed or anything here because we're the attackers. Let's push on, clear the top of this staircase. In a nutshell, nothing can get up that staircase now unless they're going to get archers set up to rain down shots on it. Because anything that tries to clear the top of this staircase will just get killed now. But no one does, but it means we managed to get to the A point. We're secure and we're pushing on. So we go around the corner and it's just pushing down the staircase. Nothing really presents much of an opposition here, so we just push on down without really doing much formation. They do auto brace. If you wonder why every time they stop, the brace activates. It's an auto brace. So every time they stop in a formation, so that's F2 or F3, then they auto brace automatically. And I do flick between the two formations pretty regularly. In a line like this, I much prefer being in the F2, you know, it gives me a much wider frontage, and 2 depth of pike is more than enough to get plenty of kills. I mean, as you can see with these javelins, just as they wander into it, they get killed. There's enough allied heroes there, they're fighting anyway. So, halberdier sergeants, yeah, it doesn't really work out for them. I just massively outrange them in terms of these Fortebraccios, and I don't think the halberdiers stand much of a chance in that capacity. And now we're really getting the push on, and you can use these guys in support of allied pushes. It's really helpful to have a little bit of allied support here, but in this sort of capacity, there's nothing the enemy to do because my range is so long. And it's just a matter of time these shields start breaking down, because I'm getting hits all the time on them. And as soon as they start to lose their block, they just take full damage. And look at all those critical hits, and they all just die. And we're up to, well, almost 110 kills now already. Oh, there we go, we are. And in that sort of situation there, just as we got into that point, there was a few sort of stray enemies in no real direction. I did just press V, set them to attack. They still hit really hard in that sort of situation with a few stragglers, so it's fine to use them just in a loose formation when there's just a couple of units, or you get caught really out of formation and you need to try and sort of recover the line sort of thing. So yeah, so kills really building up really early on. So yeah, 110 kills with these guys already. And we've been pushing quite hard, so I wanted to prove with this video that they're not only a defensive unit. They're great on the defensive, but they can also be used to push. Then we get ourselves set up, still pressuring these little spear sergeants, just absolutely butchers them. And how brutal is that? What can they do in that sort of capacity? And that's why these guys, you should be using them on the offensive, because they're just so great. And we're moving on now to the next target, onto the base point. Cleared out the supply and kind of looking for our future targets. It's very nice we've got these allied shields in support. Been doing a really good job of both keeping me covered and pushing the front line. So big thumbs up to the shield player. And there's not too much here. There's a few stragglers and stuff that we're killing off. I'm trying to keep sort of some vague semblance of formation in case anything sort of rushes from the right, any cav or any sort of condottieri or something like that. Have a quick glance on the strategic map just to see where everything is. And yeah, it kind of looks like we're going up. Shields are pushing quite aggressively, quite pleased with that. And kind of onto the base point. And this is always a bit of a hard one on this map. Kind of getting around this corner and trying to get unified as a team around the corner can be kind of difficult sometimes. So I'm sort of thinking about, where do I want to do here? Obviously, the problem with these guys is they have no shield. They do die really quite easily. So you've got to be careful about getting caught by enemy range, as you'll kind of see in a minute. So the shield pushes around. I thought, well, I might as well go, it'd be wrong to go. I really wish this shield had pushed up slightly further so I could do more with my unit, because I can't really push up here, because soon if I pass in front of the shield, I'll get slaughtered by the enemy range. So I just go right behind us, just deal with this couple of enemy peasants we got. But I didn't really want to stay in formation long because, I'm just vulnerable to enemy ranged. And I decided the best thing to do would be to push. I just set them on a loose formation there. They stab a lot like Pike militia in that capacity. They just stab like that. Seregs come out around the corner. I panic a little bit and I slightly screw it up. I pushed too far, and you see that I left it really a bit too late, and it meant they were able to get quite close. When a unit gets close like that, I find the damage of the brace really drops off. But a combination of my hero managed to cause enough stun, and yeah, that is a heroic hero unit of Seregs completely dead in 10 seconds, maybe less, 5. And yeah, it just shows the power of these guys in the right sort of situation. Then I'm sort of looking for my opportunities. I was trying to stay in some sort of centre formation, and then unfortunately this turns out to be a bit of a mistake. I wanted to block off this passage and make it very difficult for any enemies to really push the final point. But it's also where pretty much prime view range for the large group of enemy archers in the corner. And yes, we do get a good bit of damage against some enemy heroes. But yeah, the archers just start to absolutely pepper my unit, and yeah, it just diminishes really quickly, really vulnerable to range. I pull back because I'm very low on health personally, just dealing with some of the enemy heroes, trying to clear up this final point as we get trebbed. And the last couple of the unit, I just press V on them and let them attack in the end, and they just sort of get finished off. I was kind of then thinking, right, come on, we're really close to the capture here. I really wanted to just finish this game off. Really wanted to get the victory. We still had 4 minutes and we were so close on the capture. Just a couple of enemy heroes doing a good job blocking us up. Get a bit of damage in with them all. Come on, and there we go. There was the victory that we wanted. And yeah, turned out just to be a really nice game. Really big fan of these Fortebraccios. Really nice unit. Immense brace damage, particularly once you got to set up with the doctrines and once you get them max leveled out. As I say, if you lose formation, that's where it kind of all goes wrong. But if you can keep them in formation, then they really are kind of pretty unstoppable, and yeah, pretty awesome unit. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, do let me know what you think in the comments down below. Of course, subscribe to the channel for a load more Conqueror's Blade content, and I shall see you guys all on the next video.